Good morning. Here's the news at 10. First, the highlights. Lagos State Motor Vehicle Administration Agency warns motor dealers against using touts to obtain dealership certificates. Federal Executive Council approves Disaster Relief Fund, constitutes committee to reassess dams. On the foreign scene, death toll rises to 492. 1,500 injured as Israel Hezbollah continue to trade fire. And in sport, Libya appoint Nasser El Hadiri as new national team head coach. Now the details. I am Dele Agadumo. The Motor Vehicle Administration Agency, MVAA, has issued a stern warning to motor dealers in Lagos State, urging them to refrain from using touts to obtain or renew their dealership certificates. This caution comes following the discovery of fake certificates being presented for renewal, many of which were fraudulently signed by unauthorized individuals. General Manager of the agency, Rashid Muriokola, who expressed displeasure for such illegal activities, stated that law enforcement agencies, including the Nigeria Police, Vehicle Inspection Services, VRS, and Lagos State Traffic Management Authority, LASMA, have been placed on high alert to verify the authenticity of dealership certificates at all times. Muriokola emphasized that motor dealers must procure and renew their certificates only at designated MVA. Any dealer found involved in these illegal activities will face genuine certificates. Muriokola also advised motor dealers to stop patronizing touts and ensure they follow the appropriate procedures to avoid sanctions. The Lagos State Domestic and Sexual Violence Agency has organized Safeguarding and Child Protection Week at Alakoro Marina, Lagos Island. Executive Secretary, Lagos State Domestic and Sexual Violence Agency, Titilola Vaivo Adini, said the event commenced with 225 children aged between 7 and 17 in attendance. Vaivo Adini reiterated the state government's zero tolerance to all forms of abuse and violence against children and heightened awareness campaigns in this vice in her speech. She noted that engaging with religious centers, the agency has provided important teachings about child abuse prevention and protection, and the program was a reminder that much work remains to be done. Vaivo Adini also emphasized the need for ongoing collaboration to combat sexual and gender-based violence, as the fight against child abuse requires a concerted effort from all sectors. Meanwhile, Medical Director and Chief Executive Officer of the General Hospital, Shomolu, Mustafa Quadri, has urged victims of sexual and gender-based violence to speak out in order to get help from the appropriate quarters rather than die in silence. Quadri gave this admonition to patients and members of the public when the campaign train of the Social Welfare Department of the hospital embarked on a sensitization campaign to some major streets in Shomolu in a bid to raise awareness against sexual and gender-based violence. During the sensitization, the campaign team distributed flyers to residents and passers-by while carrying markers and traversing Durosimi, Oguntolu and Bailey streets in Shomolu local government. They also campaigned in their local languages to drive home their point, educating the people on the need for victims to tell their stories. This year's celebration theme is Sexual and Gender-Based Violence, Not on My Watch, Not in My Lagos. Members of the Organization of African First Ladies for Development, OFLAD, have described the reintroduction of the alternative high school for girls by Nigeria's First Lady, Oluremi Tinubu, as a strategic intervention capable of tilting the balance in favor of women. This was at a high-level dinner on empowering Africa's future through education hosted by the organization in partnership with Their World, an organization led by former First Lady of United Kingdom, Sarah Brown. The First Ladies of African countries present noted that with education, the the girl child and women would have been better positioned for a greater productivity and more value, taking cognizance of the interventions by Nigeria's First Lady in education and childbirth registration. More of the First Lady's interventions in education, women empowerment and health are scheduled for peer review as her engagement at UNGA continues. And now to the rest of the stories. The Federal Executive Council, FEC, has approved the setting up of a disaster relief fund that is aimed at engendering quick response to victims of disasters across the country. Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Dele Agadumo, stated this while briefing State House correspondents shortly after the FEC meeting chaired by President Bola Tinubu at the Presidential Villa, Abuja. The fund will source finances from the 3 tiers of government and private sector players for flood victims. Also, the Council constituted a technical committee to reassess the dams across the country, particularly the Alau Dam in Borno State, where scores of lives were lost recently as a result of the flood disaster that ravaged many parts of the state's capital, Maiduguri. The committee is to be chaired by the Minister of Water Resources and has other members. Nigeria is demanding permanent seats for Africa on the United Nations Security Council. The Minister of Defense, Abubakar Badaru, made the demand at the Summit of the Future during the 79th United Nations General Assembly in New York, USA. Badaru said Nigeria has contributed to international peace and security in terms of troops, finance, logistics, and civilian experts to various African countries, including Guinea-Bissau, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Mali, and Cote d'Ivoire. The minister called on the United Nations Security Council to give just representation to Africa on a permanent basis as the UN Security Council, emphasizing its importance for consensus, global peace, inclusivity, security, deepening global peace, and building trust. The United States Chamber of Commerce has expressed a willingness to invest approximately $320 million in mortgage refinancing and small and medium enterprises in Nigeria. Spokesperson for Vice President Kashim Shettima, Stanley Okwacha, made this known in a statement saying that the Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation, Nisha Biswal, made the declaration at a U.S.-Nigeria Executive Business Roundtable hosted by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce as part of the ongoing 79th session of the United Nations. Biswal explained that with a portfolio of $1 billion, the Chamber would invest $200 million in mortgage refinancing in Nigeria. Now to foreign news. At least 492 people, including 35 children, have been killed in a day of unrelenting Israeli attacks on Lebanon. According to the country's health ministry, at least 1,645 people were wounded. Lebanon's Hezbollah fired a barrage of missiles at Israeli air bases in response as world leaders and the United Nations called for urgent de-escalation. Turkey warns that Israel's offensive on Lebanon could drag the entire region into chaos. Meanwhile, Lebanon's Prime Minister Najib Mikati says he is heading to New York later in light of current developments to make further contacts. The UN General Assembly is currently meeting in New York, and Mikati had been due to attend the meeting. He had cancelled the trip because of intensifying strikes in his country, including strikes hitting the Lebanese capital, Beirut, on Friday, as Israel said it targeted and killed a senior Hezbollah commander. Now, sport. Libya has appointed Nasser al-Hadiri as the new national head coach. The Libya Football Federation, LFF, recently sacked Serbian Milutin Stradejovic following the Mediterranean Night's poor start at the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations qualifying series. The North Africans are bottom of Group D after recording just 1 point from 2 games. Al-Hadiri will be assisted by Abu Bakr Al-Harak, while Misbah Shangab will be the goalkeeper coach. And that is the news at 10. Just before we go, slow down at road junctions, intersections, and pedestrian crossings. You can follow us and like all our various social media platforms: X at Traffic Radio 961, Facebook Lagos Traffic Radio 96.1 FM, Instagram Lagos Traffic Radio 961. Subscribe and watch our news and programs live on YouTube at Traffic Radio 961. You can also visit our website www.trafficradio961.ng. Did you know that the Sanwo-Olu administration completed the Lekki Free Trade Zone jetty and offloading platform? You can get more details on the Lagos State Government website. To end the news are the highlights of the major stories. The Motor Vehicle Administration Agency, MVAA, has issued a stern warning to motor dealers in Lagos State, urging them to refrain from using touts to obtain or renew their dealership certificates. The Federal Executive Council, FEC, has approved the setting up of a disasters relief fund that is aimed at engendering quick response to victims of disaster across the country. It also constituted a technical committee to reassess the dams across the country, particularly the Alau Dam in Borno State. We also told you that at least 492 people, including 35 children, have been killed in a day of unrelenting Israeli attacks on Lebanon, and at least 1,645 people were wounded. And in sports, Libya has appointed Nasser Al-Hadiri as the new national team head coach. For contact to the newsroom, send a message to info@trafficradio961.ng. That is news broadcast compiled by Adirayo Idowolaya. I am Dele Agadumo. Good morning. Thank you for listening.